fence. So we were able to replace that for about $7,000. I'll also mention the chairlift here at the middle school. That was also approved at April town meeting. And as you know, we don't have an elevator here in this building, but we have a second floor. And we've had horrible problems over the years with not just kids who break a leg, but from time to time handicapped students who are permanently wheelchair bound can't get to the second floor. So this is going to be a huge improvement. That chairlift, we're opening bids next week for that, and the goal is to have that chairlift installed on the stairwell, not this stairwell right out here, but the one closer to the back of the building before September. And we know that there are students entering the middle school next year who will need this chairlift to get to the second floor. So that was a $30,000 project. And the last one is technology. The committee will remember that we had a 3-year lease purchase for CPUs that we acquired 3 years ago. And town meeting was kind enough to remember their commitment to us, and they allocated $60,000 for the 3rd year of this lease. And those funds haven't been expended yet because the bill hasn't come in, but that will come in August, and we will have completed our payments to Dell for that project. So that's a very quick summary of our capital situation.
Questions or comments from the committee? I've got a couple. Carl, just to make it clear to our vast audience out there in TV land, and also those who read the newspaper, but you said we were approved $150,000 for the roof project, and the bids came in at $90,000. I just want to make it clear that we don't have that $60,000 to now go and spend on whatever we want. Basically, the town borrows $60,000 less, correct? Isn't that how it works?
Well, thank you for that question, Mel. Because town meeting appropriated $150,000, the approach we take is, what we had done was we'd gone up on the roof, we brought our several contractors up there to give us a professional estimation for what the issues are. There's a lot of bubbling that was occurring. We had some leaking both in the auditorium and in the gym area and along A wing. So they go up there, and we also bring Kevin Buckley up there, who many of you know, principal for Nightbag and Anderson. And they make a professional estimation for what it will cost to repair. We wanted to do all of A wing. They all, at that time, we actually had that estimate in the winter. So we asked town meeting for $150,000, because that was our best understanding for what the costs were going to be. Yet when we went out to bid, and remember, we were pretty aggressive with making sure everyone who's a roofer can have an opportunity to look at the bids. To our pleasant surprise, they came in, as I said, in the $90,000 area. What that allowed us to do was expand and move into what we might term preventive maintenance. With so many projects, once you get going, you see something else that's needed. So we have allocated all of these funds and have been able to greatly expand the repairs we did. And I'm fairly confident this is going to allow us to not have to look at any roof work at the high school for a period of time.
Great. I had another question, but I forgot what it was. Just to point out, too, on this list, and I think it's been published in the newspaper before, but we list all of the major projects at both the high school and middle school that we probably would be doing over the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years if we were in the middle of a building project with the MSBA. And there are a lot of major projects, a lot of infrastructure projects that right now are on hold. So,
can someone explain the revised criteria versus former criteria, and how do we know these projects are on hold?
okay, Carl.
Surely. The town administrator, if you would kindly turn your attention to the 3rd page of the capital budget, the town administrator creates criteria, and it allows him and the Board of Selectmen to evaluate and rank both school and town proposed capital projects based on these criteria. The reason I listed both columns, and perhaps time to remove them. For many, many years, the column called former criteria, and you can see 1 through 8 there, were the criterion that the town administrator had promulgated. And it appeared that in the long run, that given financial constraints, unless a project carried a 1 or a 2, it was unlikely to get very far in the process. The town administrator last summer issued revised criteria, and you can see they're a little bit shorter, 1 through 4, also listed on that 3rd page. So I just thought for the transition to list both criteria so that observers of this document could make judgments based on both sets of criteria.
So are all the repairs to the middle and high school, are they on hold right now?
Yeah,
All
if
the
you
major
look at
They're
ones.
ranked number 1?
There's
Yeah.
$10 million, if you look at what's extended out over those couple of fiscal
Yeah.
years, there's about $10 million put to both buildings, and that's the number we've been using with the secondary school building committee, is that there's $10 million in immediate capital projects that we're putting on until such time as,
So if the building project were to not get approved,
Then
we would have to start down the road, and,
and going out further, would have to do more.
right, and likely not get any reimbursement for them.
So
That's
out
it.
of
That's
these
strong.
projects, out of this 2-page list, or 3-page list, 2.5 pages, what projects are we looking to approve? Or
Well, that's-
if we don't even approve, what projects are being approved?
I think as Carl said, Kathy's gonna go back to the administrators and see if there are any projects in their buildings, because they obviously know their buildings better than we do. And then Carl will come back with that list with probably a few added items. If you look at the ones, Michael, on page 2, you'll see 3 or 4 at the top that all have money listed for fiscal year 12. The rack truck, sped van,
Yep.
there's 10 for building security, and then there's 10 for furniture.
Right.
Those we might move those into the October town meeting warrant if we feel it's necessary. So it would probably be those 4, and then whatever Kathy comes back with from the administrative team that we'll look at. But we're not gonna move on, obviously, on any of the big high school and middle school
Right.
things until.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And I think what we did was we had Carl and Wayne work up this list of the major projects at the high school and middle school, so we would have a pretty good figure as to what we face in the near term if we don't get new buildings.
And we have until the 15th, August 15th, to submit capital for the warrant, so we have some time to consider them.
And they said they could also get items on later than that, but August 15th is the date they set. But since the meeting's not until October, which is why we probably should schedule our next meeting before August 15th. Anyway, any other comments or questions on the large capital? Okay, so we'll hold this over until next meeting, we come back with a revised list. Okay. Kathy, superintendent's entry plan.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to bring this to the committee's attention. During my interview for this position, I had noted that I would be very interested in conducting or completing an entry plan. And so I wanted to have a conversation with you tonight to talk about the general goals of the entry plan, and I had listed that is to get to know the school district and its people as fully as possible in a brief period, to examine any key issues in the school system's past, and identify how these issues were handled, by whom, and what were the norms that affected the organization, to identify tasks that needed to be done and to rank them in order of priority, and then to establish how these tasks should be accomplished. So in order to complete this entry plan, it requires a considerable amount of time engaging in interviews with individuals such as yourself, as well as other constituencies, and small groups, meeting with groups that would come together over the course of the school year as well. So I wanted you to know that it would take up a considerable amount of my time, but I think it's important in the process of orienting myself to this organization and to this community so that I gain a deep understanding of all of the constituencies, perceptions as well as involvement in the school district. And then I would come back and report to you on a periodic basis how the development of the entry plan is going, with a final presentation sometime in December. That's typically when final entry plans are done by superintendents. And one outcome, or potential outcome, of this entry plan is to take a look at what you have in place already as your strategic plan. I noticed that your strategic plan was developed in 2000, and it's been referenced over the course of the years in various minutes and in your goals. But it would give us an opportunity then to take a look at the information that's gathered through the entry process and see if there's something that can be used to update the strategic plan in some form or fashion. And again, that would be up to the committee. But it provides some interesting information as well. So I wanted to get a sense from the committee as to whether or not you find this to be of value for me to engage in this process, and then to come back and provide periodic updates to you, or if you would rather I didn't devote my time to this development at this particular stage.
Comments?
I think this is a necessary step to becoming acquainted with the community and also to inform our strategic process. I mean, I think the date of 2000 is evident enough that we need to engage in another strategic planning
Yeah,
session.
before David
Um,
left.
so,
Right.
You know, I think this would be extremely valuable for you and also for us in the community. So you can sort of see where our holes are in terms of some of the programmatic elements that, you know, are in place, but also, you know, just, you know, to generate ideas and also to start building that coalition that will support you and support the district. So I think this is a great plan, and any other comment?
I think it's a good idea. I think, obviously, the other one's gonna have to allocate your time, and it might be time above and beyond what you would have normally had to put in, but I think it is a good idea, and I think if you can get it done by December, great.
That would be my goal.
Good.
I think it's an essential element. I just don't see how you can do the job without understanding what it is.
I think it's especially important, given that we had a superintendent who was there for 15 years. So everything becomes by rote, and
Mhm.
everything just happens because it happens, because you had the same superintendent for 15 years.
Mhm.
And when you had an interim, basically the same system keeps rolling along and no changes are really made. You know, things went fine. But I think the strategic plan is very important. Jerry mentioned, right before, I would say 6 months or so before David left, we really started talking about putting together a committee to revise or write a new strategic plan, because it is outdated. I'm sure it has a lot of good in it that we can keep and reuse, but looking forward into what a 21st century education is, I think, is something that we have to do in that strategic plan. And there were a lot of people involved in the 2000 plan that probably would still be interested in being involved in this plan. So I think that's one thing you can do, is look at the names on that plan, the committee that helped put that plan together. I've met with Kathy, but the four of you are going to have to also.
I've already-
Have you met with her?
Yes, today.
Oh, good.
Although
So I
we
think
can
that,
talk.
you know, and obviously she's had plenty of time to meet with Carl and
Mhm.
people within the staff, but I think teachers, community members especially, not just NRU, but in North Reading, you know, United and the other North Reading group for education, but just regular people in the community who have kids in the school, or, you know, someone like Jeff Simon, who's been actively involved and has just a lot of, you know, can give you a lot of feedback on what he's seen over the years, and other people like that who've been involved. So I think it's extremely worthwhile.
I do plan to standardize the kinds of questions that I ask the various groups, so I will be coming up with some very specific interview questions, and we've had a chance to chat, but I do want to meet with you again to go
Sure.
over these specific questions, so I'm asking each committee member the same question together, to get a sense of how the committee works. I'm very interested in also meeting with the committee, and maybe this is more toward the workshop conversation, about developing a communication plan. I think it's very important for us to have a conversation about who gets communicated when, on what issues. And we want to make sure that we're really clear about Someone might want email and another might want a telephone call, and on what issues do you want to know about when they occur, and what issues do you not need to know about? Because some committee members may want to know about some things and others may not want to know about others.
Right.
So I really like to talk about the elements of a communication plan, just so that we're all very clear from the outset as to how we're going to